So, Jamie, I'm so excited for today because this is something that we've been talking about for such a long time. And I know you're keen to share your story about your battles with tinnitus and to help others that are in a similar position. So, thank you so much for joining us. Now,
You're welcome.
and that doesn't really need an introduction, but do you want to tell everybody out there who's watching that might not know who you are a little bit about yourself and your musical background?
Okay, my name's Jamie Morrison. I play drums in the Stereophonics. Before that, well, in fact, I've been playing drums in bands since I was 16, 37 years old now, which is 21 in rock years. And I was in a band called the Noisettes before that, and I've played with various people from Bryan Adams to Sia to Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. Just I've been playing for a while. Drums is my main instrument, but I write songs and I work a lot in the studio. And obviously, hearing is a huge thing. And the last year was crazy for me. And I met Matthew, and he's really helped me straighten out some things I had going on in my mind. And I just wanted to take this time to talk to you all today and give you an insight to what I've gone through and how you can overcome some very common problems. I've been coming to you for a long time. I've been coming to Harley Street Hearing since I was 17, because as a kid, I was always told, protect your ears. As a drummer, all my drum teachers were like, protect your ears, protect your ears. And the first thing I did was go and get some molds made. And why I wanted to speak to you today, why I was so keen to do the interview, was just in the last couple of years, I noticed that I was getting ringing. Yeah, I've been protecting my ears from day one. And it was a very confusing scenario for me. And that's when I started talking to you more personally about it and how I noticed, well, you told me. Do you want to tell me what you said to me when I came?
So yeah, I can personally relate to some of the things that we'll talk about today, as I've had tinnitus since I was a kid. Yeah, and so when I'm in a good place and I'm happy, I'm not tired, not stressed, unwell, my tinnitus just disappears into the background, and you can get on with a normal day. But then, similar to yourself, if I'm unwell or I've got any of those other things going on, then my tinnitus can take over, and it can have a really negative influence and actually bring the mood down. And then at the same time, that feeds the tinnitus and it exacerbates itself. And there's some of the things that you've been reporting, certainly over the last year as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. Well, that was the thing that confused me the most, because I associated tinnitus with loud noise. Okay, so I've protected my ears for my whole career, but I've got tinnitus, and I'm racking my brains. I'm on my own. I haven't spoken to any doctors yet. I haven't spoken to you yet. I'm at my house, rattling around my house, hearing ringing in my ears. I've been in lockdown for a year, not played any music, but my ears are ringing. Haven't played drums that week. My ears are ringing. What's going on? Have a great conversation with you, and I learned that stress is tinnitus can be a barometer for stress. It was a whole world opened up to me, where I was going to bed most nights thinking I'll never hear silence, again. And interestingly enough, that's actually what people would tell me when I was a younger man. They would say, value silence, enjoy silence. And I always remembered that. I always thought, oh, I love silence. It's a great thing. You go home and you turn everything off and you just enjoy your vibes. But I was suffering because I would be enjoying my vibes, and then there would be this noise in my head. And so I started my journey and my quest to work out more what's going on then. I thought I'd been doing everything you need to do to protect yourself. But it's actually deeper than volume. Tinnitus can be, and it brought light to a need to actually deal with some deeper issues, some anxiety issues and whatnot. And it was a revelation to me, and I started to have cognitive behavior therapy, which is a fantastic thing. And I just started to take a step back, and I just started to listen to myself a little bit more. And I started to, you can't help but get wound up in this world, especially now with everything that's going on. I'd taken care of my ears by putting earplugs in them, but now I had to take care of my mind. You know, and I had
That's a really nice way of thinking about it, actually. Yeah, there's two elements to this. There's the physiological element, which you've done your best to protect your ears, and looking at your hearing test that we've done over the years as well. Everything is spot on, so there's nothing showing based on the work that you've done to protect your hearing. But that psychological element contributes to 50% of this tinnitus, and with everything that's happened over the last 12 months, you know, the music industry and anything involved in hospitality, you know, that must have played a massive part in terms of your mental health, and then had a significant impact on your tinnitus as well.
Well, this is the thing. I wasn't even aware that it was playing such a huge role on me subliminally. I thought I'd been dealing with everything pretty well. You know, we're all in this together, you know, and we're all, no musicians working, and there's no gigs, and everyone's in lockdown. And you know, I felt like I was taking it well, but it was the subliminal side of it mounting up over the course of the year, where in small increments it became a big thing. If I'd started cognitive behavior therapy during lockdowns, or if I was a bit more mindful during it, I reckon it wouldn't have crashed in such a big way towards the end of the year. Because I was enjoying myself, frankly. You know, I was being at home, and I was being a husband, and I was cooking, cleaning, and I was investing time into myself, writing and gardening, but I still wasn't really paying attention to my mind. And I realized, you know, the year that I had off, everyone had off. It was the first time I've ever had a chunk of time off in my whole adult life. I've been touring since I was 17, you know, every year, every single year. So I've never had that much time at home. I've never really had that much time to myself. And it just brought light to the need for me to process some of the experiences I've been through, some of the amazing experiences I've been through, and also some of the bad experiences I've been through. I brushed some of the bad things under the carpet in the same way as I've brushed having #1 records or headlining stadiums. You move on to the next thing so quickly. It's not because I don't care or I'm not grateful. It's more because bang, 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 bang. There's something. It's just non-stop. And so I think that year it was like I was actually it was enough time for my brain to start internalizing and processing experiences, and it was like, wow, actually I've had quite a dramatic life. It's been a special life, but it's actually been like a roller coaster from, you know, you playing in front of lots of people, and you know, it can be quite a high pressure thing sometimes. And I watched the football, and I saw all the boys playing football, and I thought, you know, I know exactly what that feels like, you know what that thing to rise to the occasion at a specific duration of time.
Yeah.
Between 8:45 and when we go on stage to the end, that's the time that you've just got to be the best you've ever been. You know, that you wait your whole day. I appreciate those footballers, because, you know, I knew what they're feeling like when they woke up, you know, and it's quite a thing. It does something to you over a long time. It does something which you're not even aware of. I guess
that's why I guess it's even. Sorry to speak over you, but that's why I guess it's even harder when you're used to running on 150% every day, and even if you perhaps have got some level of tinnitus simmering away in the background, then you've not got the time to think of it, because your brain is taken over. Your capacity of your brain is basically on overload, and then all of a sudden you're wound down and you're sat at home and you're like, wow, okay, let's think about the reality of what's going on here. And yes, you're right in terms of saying that everybody's going through the same thing, but at the same time, it doesn't make you stop thinking that your whole world is crumbling down and being overwhelmed by those feelings, I guess. And you weren't alone with that, interestingly. So certainly from July to August last year, so 2021, no, 2020, I'm losing track of time. 2020 does not make any sense, does it? We had so many new patients coming through the door who'd experienced some level of tinnitus. And I think it's just because they were left at home with their thoughts, not interacting with people at work, working from home. And interestingly, in 2018, the British Tinnitus Association upgraded their estimates of people in the UK with tinnitus from 1 in 10 to 1 in 8, which is 13% of the population. And I suspect that figure will go up again. When you first developed your tinnitus, what was your where did you turn? What did you feel like the support was like out there? Was there anywhere? Did you go online? Did you Google it? Did you look at any particular resources?
Well, until I met you, I was very lonely. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to speak, because also I found online it would be all professors or doctors like yourself talking, but not many musicians. And it's also maybe a little bit sort of a thing where you don't really talk about it you don't really talk about hearing protection. It's not like it's at all frowned upon. It's just something that you don't even talk about. So I felt quite lonely, to be honest. And when I first noticed it, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there when you said that all of a sudden you had loads of time, and whereas before you might not have had time to acknowledge that it was there. I think maybe I probably suffered from tinnitus, from the anxiety aspect of it for a long time. But you know, you get on the tour bus after a show or a plane, and they're noisy, you know, and you're around people all the time. It's noisy. You can't hear it. You don't give it any time because you can't even hear it. You can't acknowledge it enough for it to even get its claws into your mind. But when I had no one to talk to at home, well, not loads of people. I didn't have parties to go to or buses to get on, and I'm just, sitting at the house. It was like, oh, what's that? Oh, that's bad, isn't it? And then I'd go into different rooms. Everyone's done it. You go into different rooms.
Yeah.
And then I did. I mean, I really, really went down the rabbit hole with it. It brought me so much stress, and it made me so miserable. I would wait. The first thing I would do when I wake up would be listening for it, and I'd be doing so many things which are actually the worst things you can be doing. And I wanted to say that, if you're a musician, obviously protect your ears. You're gonna have some sort of damage if you play for 25 years. Don't be reckless. Try to always put your plugs in and try to always be cool about it. That's one side of it. I'm just trusting that people are doing that. I'm just assuming that people are doing it. The other side of it is the side that I want to focus on, which is the side where the anxiety part of it. Because about 6 months ago, I was convinced I would never hear silence again. Right? My ears have stopped ringing. Okay, but 6 months ago they were roaring. I haven't got any damage in my ears, like you said. All my tests I've done every single year since 2013, they don't show any major damage. I've got damage that is just a byproduct of doing the job I do. It's not serious. It's in fact fantastic hearing for a drum. So I've got to take that part of it out of the equation for why I've got my ears. It took me a long time to take that out of the equation, but I did. So now the other part is this anxious thing, and I just want to tell people that it's not the end. The ringing, it will go away. We are all in the weirdest time of our lives. It's kind of probably natural that your mind is on high alert, and it's sending you a signal going, whoa, we're alarmed. The alarm signal is that tinnitus. It's not you. It's not your life. It is a byproduct of everything. I couldn't grasp that. I was angry because I thought, wow, I've protected my ears for all these time, and now I've got tinnitus. I was angry about that, and then once I worked out it was anxiety, it was then a journey deeper than even music or even tinnitus. This journey is like a journey of like that will help me in all aspects of life. Being cool and collected and feeling inner peace and calm is the job at hand. It's we're going to do all the other things. We're going to play all the big shows. We're going to do all that, but it's taking care of myself. Not just eating good food. Not just doing good things. It's taking care of the mind, which is my sole focus now. Because if that's right, everything else is connected. And it took me so long to work that out. So I suggest if anyone has ringing in their ears and it isn't from actual damage, look at yourself inwards. What's making you unhappy? What's happened in your life to get you to this place? It could just be as simple as the trauma in the world right now. Regardless of that, you've still got to, as a human being, find a way to maneuver yourself through this world when it's in times of great stress and when it's not. I now see this whole journey as a life lesson, which will help me for loads of other things. And that's really what I wanted to say to young musicians or old musicians or people who are suffering, that unless you actually have damaged ears, this thing will go away, but you have to work for it. And it won't happen over a week. It won't happen over a month. It might not even happen over a month. It's taken me about 6 months for this to calm down. And
on that note, it might not even be that it does go away, but changing your mentality towards it, so changing one's reaction towards it and not letting it be the dominant force in your life is probably, and that's the thing that took ages to try and get across to you. For obvious reasons, your ears are your musical instruments at the end of the day. Without them, it would be a massively life-changing event. And so your big concern was that this was the catalyst for something worse. This was the beginning of the end. But you said some really great eye-opening things there, and it leads me on to ask you if there's anything that you'd recommend to people out there that they could do on a daily basis, or any coping mechanisms. You talked a bit about CBT and mindfulness, and how do you apply those strategies on a daily basis? What do you do when you wake up, instead of the first thing that you're doing being to think about tinnitus, which you mentioned before? What's your kind of coping strategy?
Well, there's a few tools that are very good. That so on a base level, you've got to be hydrated. You've got to be fed. You've got to be those two things, and sleep, food, and hydration. These are a foundation that will build everything on top of going forwards in your day.
Just as simple as that.
That's one thing. So that's your foundation. That's because everything I'm about to say will not work unless you're getting your good sleep. And this is not just one good sleep a week. We've got to get some consistent sleep. We've got to be rested. That's hard. I know that's hard, but that is part of the solution. So it's important. Food and water, hydration, huge. Now, there's one thing I do is I listen when I wake up, and I try and count 5 sounds that are going on in the world. I might have to go outside, in fact, in my house, in my garden, and I'll hear the birds, and I'll hear maybe a car, and I'll hear the wind. And I start acknowledging those sounds. And once I hit 5, I'm not listening to my inner monologue anymore. I'm actually living in real life. I woke up inside myself, and that's bad sometimes, because if there is a ring, you're going to hear it. I just acknowledge 5 sounds, and that's one thing. The other thing, which is something people have talked to me a lot about, which is the breathing, and I never really subscribed to that, but it really works. Slow breathing, and what it does is it's the actual act of breathing slowly, you have to think to do it. I'm not thinking about what I'm about to do now. I'm thinking about doing that slow thing. So once again, it puts me back into real life. You know, I'm actually breathing. I'm acknowledging things in that sense, rather in the outer world rather than my inner world. Those are two things, but those don't work unless I'm rested, fed, and watered. Also, some days are bad. Some days are stressful. Some days, loads of things can go wrong in your life. You can eat, drink, sleep, do all of these things, but things can happen which will test you. And once you've got some time under your belt with this healthy mindset, when those stressful days do come, you can just acknowledge them for what they are. Just a stressful day. It's not the end of the world, and tomorrow is a new vibe, whatnot. I would suffer in anticipation. If I was feeling bad, I'd be like, oh, this is how I'm going to feel for the rest of this week. And no, man, that's not how it works.
So this is all to bring you to the present, basically. And it's to get away from yesterday. It's to not be anxious about tomorrow. It's to think about the now, as is common in CBT and mindfulness especially.
It works. It really works because it takes you out of your head. And your head's a crazy place. All of our heads are crazy places, and sometimes you just need to. You might have got yourself on the wrong road, and you just need to make a tiny detour to get back on the right road. It might only take 10 to 15 minutes, but you're back on track now. And I didn't have any of those tools. I didn't think about any of that stuff. I didn't think about drinking enough water. I never thought about sleep. Like I say, those three things are your foundation, and then there's other things that I do on top of that. But then you'll find your own things. There's an inner confidence you get after getting a few weeks under your belt where you haven't paid it any attention. There's an inner confidence you get, which just that is enough. But on those stressful days, I'll implement the counting, the counting sounds I hear, and I'll implement the breathing, and that seems to work.
Now, do you think, out of curiosity, do you think from a musician's point of view, with regards to prevention of tinnitus as well, do you think there's enough out there in terms of raising awareness to prevent musicians from developing either tinnitus or hearing loss? Obviously, you've grown up on it. Is it something that you're educated about early on, or even when you're on tour? Is it like a health and safety thing, or is it something that's left to you to look after?
Definitely, it's something left to you to look after. When you become a professional, when you're working in professional environments, I said it earlier, I'm just assuming that you're at that level. I want to say that when you're really young and you start, it should really be stressed with the greatest of importance, because those early sessions when you're really just bashing, you haven't got any technique yet, you can get some damage just there, which will, I have a tiny bit of damage. I believe it's nothing from what I've done in my adult life. I think it was all done from when I was a kid. But I don't.
And at that age, we all think we're invincible at that age as well, don't we? You know, nothing will ever happen. You know, my ears will last me forever. And that's down to parents as well, isn't it? And parenting, and if they're letting their kids play the drums or any kind of musical instruments, not just the drums, they've got to ensure that they're protecting their kids' hearing too.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just do my bit where whenever I'm interacting with drummers and young drummers, I always make sure that they're clued on to wearing earplugs. I always talk about valuing silence. Whether it's been taken on board or not is another thing. But when I was a kid, it wasn't until I met my first drum teacher, which is maybe a couple of years after I even first discovered drums, who told me about earplugs. And so I was lucky. I met someone, but I hope to pass on the need to wear protection on your ears to as many people as possible. I just really think it's so important, you know, especially if you really want to do it for a long time. And it's the drummers that I meet who haven't looked after their ears. the old guard, it's not the way I want to live when I'm that old.
Yeah.
You know?
And is it something with hearing protection? Is it something that you do just when you're on stage? Do you do it every time you rehearse as well? Is there ever a time where you pick up your drumsticks and you don't wear your hearing protection?
There's never a time, never really. I mean, the occasions where I don't wear earplugs is if I'm playing drums and I'm playing with my hands.
Okay. Yeah.
But I probably still wear them because I actually find the metallic sounds of cymbals very loud, personally. I actually don't enjoy cymbals. So drums, I love the sound of a pure drum with no earplugs in, playing with my hand. But playing a drum with a stick, I need to take the edge off it. You know, I actually don't know if I actually like that loud noise in general. You know, odd thing to say being a drummer in a band, but I like the feeling of knowing that when I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm not damaging myself more than any other feeling. I like that because it means that I can just take that out of the equation of what's happening and just focus on playing music. I don't have to. It just takes it out of the loop, and now I can just play and everything's cool. And I love taking them out at the end, and then when you hear what was missing, you hear the audience clap or whatever, and it's just you think, wow, I'm glad I wore them for that whole thing. That happens a lot. Headphones are a troublesome thing for me. Working out the sweet spot for headphones when you're in the studio. That can be a thing. You've got to watch out for that, musicians, even non-musicians listening to your music on iPhones. You can't be going, if you can't be, 3/4 is the highest you should go on your mobile phone. You know, I don't go past half, but if you're on that red, when it goes red, when you turn your phone up, that is something that's bad. When you're in the studio, just trying to get the right volume between the mix and the drums, that's sometimes quite hard. Sometimes I end up wearing earplugs and then headphones, but then you end up taking the music up louder than it needed to be. So that's still something I'm trying to work out. There's modern headphones which isolate so well the outside sound, not the noise cancelling ones. There's headphones that just stick on your head, and those ones are great. So musicians, check out alternative types of studio headphones. Non-musicians, always clock where your volume is on your phone. Always clock where your volume is on your television. Obviously, some shows are louder than others, but you know, if I'm watching something like Seinfeld, I know that's around 12. But if I'm turning that up to 16, my ears are tired today or something. You know, just acknowledge things. Learn about you and how you react to music. Pay attention to yourself because you're the biggest GPS unit of finding where you want to go. You're the biggest one. Your body will always tell you what. That's the problem with living this fast-paced life, is you don't really get enough chance to really acknowledge that inside you. The lockdown subsequently helped me acknowledge that for me, and all of a sudden, okay.
Honestly, Jamie, you're a different guy to some of the times that I've seen you over the last 12 months.
Exactly.
It's a joy to see you like this. It really is.
You helped me though. You helped me get there, and I was lucky to meet you because. And that's why I think this video is important, because I really just wanted to have that information out there with like just a musician speaking of my experience of it. I mean, there's little out there. There's all facts, loads of facts about it and how it happens and whatnot. But there's subtleties between all of this. And if my words can help in any way, that's a win for me. And I wish I had my words when I was suffering. So I know that if anyone catches this, they're going to get help from these words, definitely.
Yeah, so even if this video helps one other person out there and gives you some of the advice that you needed to hear when you were at your challenging point, then it's definitely done the job.
Yeah. One at a time, man. My drum teacher told me once, and I've told 1,000 people. You know that whoever watches this video, if they tell 10, 20 people, and that's how this thing works. But definitely, there's not enough information out there about the anxiety aspect of tinnitus. There's plenty about the other bit, plenty about volume, and I would say most musicians associate tinnitus with volume. And I'm just trying to say that it's definitely not all about that. And also working in the music business, up and down roller coaster, stressful thing, that, you know, anxiety is rife in this game. In fact, anxiety is rife in the world right now. So for us to not talk about how tinnitus can be one of those alarm bells to say that you're suffering is mental. It's mental. So someone out there might not even be aware that that's what's going on, like me. Everything was set in my world, yet my ears are ringing. So, you know, it shone a light on something deeper that needed to be addressed. And that's not even just about tinnitus. That's just a thing about living a good life. So it's a complicated thing. It's a subtle thing, you know, and it requires talking to. And I might talk fast, or I might go to different subjects, but if you can grab the essence of what I'm trying to say, the point of it is that it will be all right. It will be all right. It really will.
I think you've put the message across really, really well today. And I think one of the most important things that people realize after this video is if you're experiencing it and that you're at a point where it is overwhelming you, that will exacerbate the tinnitus. But make sure you go out there and speak to a professional. So get in front of your GP. They might be able to point you in the right direction. Go and find yourself an audiologist, someone that specializes in tinnitus, or even if you want to just on your own look into mindfulness. I think there's some great apps out there that can help as well, and that will help with that, the anxiety side of things and the psychological element. From a protecting your hearing point of view, the best thing I can recommend is hearing protection, and something's better than nothing. So even if it's the generic ones that you can get off the shelf in the shop, or even better, the ones that you wear, which have the attenuation filters in there, and those filters can be changed depending on the capacity of your music. There is an incredible scheme out there run by Help Musicians UK. I'll give them a little plug in this as well, in which they'll give you an appointment with an audiologist, and educate musicians on hearing protection, test the hearing as well to see if there's been any damage to the ears, and also provide a set of custom-made attenuative hearing plugs as well. And so that's worth looking at too. Help Musicians UK. So you'll find that on their website. The scheme's called Musicians Hearing Health Scheme. And so that attacks this from both ends, looking at both the physiological element and looking at the psychological element too. Are there any sign-off words that you've got for any musicians out there, Jamie, that you can think of?
There's actually one piece of information before even that which I want to comment on. When you're in your hyped state, when you're suffering the most, there'll be a peak. You'll acknowledge it, and you'll work yourself up, and you'll work yourself up to a certain place. And once you've reached the peak, you'll be there for however long you are, and you'll work your way down. Now, once you're in your peak of suffering, because it is suffering, I really suggest not to try and drown it out with headphones or anything like that. Don't try and drown it out. Match the volume. So when you've got, say you're using white noise or sounds or music, you put music on. You need to sleep. I can't sleep because I've got this ringing in there. I need to put something on to distract it. Say it's music, white noise, whatever. Do not make it louder than the ringing, because all that happens is when you turn that off the next day and that goes, that thing that's masking it, this tinnitus goes there. You need to just match it in volume and trust after half an hour it will feel better. You want to take that music up louder just so you can not hear it. But please, if you take that up, this tinnitus is crafty, and all it will do is shine brighter when you take that masking tape away. I really like the white noise generator. I really like the binaural sounds. I like the sounds of rain. You know, sometimes you can have it in the speaker. I know you have a speaker in your house, for example. I know that. I can't do the speaker because my wife doesn't likes the peace and quiet. I like the headphones, and I use them to help me get sleep at night, and I just enjoy it. I like the rain sounds, but I never make it too loud. That was a pitfall I made, and I just really want to say your instinct will be to turn it up. Do not turn it up.
Just from what you're saying now shows the the desperation that you've had in terms of trying to look at every option to maintain this and to get this tinnitus under control.
Oh man, I did everything. I went around the houses. I do absolutely everything big, and I did this. I did this massive, and that's why I really it hit me hard. It touched my heart, and it really affected me. What I learned in the last year it has changed my life going forwards, and I was oblivious, and I know loads of people are oblivious, and why would you be tuned into this? If I'd found me on YouTube when I was suffering, you know, I'd be in a great place, and so I just wanted to say that to everyone. I wanted to take time to speak to you and just let everyone know the little subtleties between, because that's the bit that really makes the difference. The facts are out there. The facts are out there. It's the subtleties and just hearing a real working musician talk about it. I'm hoping that's going to help. And with that being said, just keep protecting your ears. Look into yourself and see what's going on with yourself. This ringing, if it's not damaged, it's just an alarm bell. It's your mind and body going, hey, I'm not happy with something. It might not be obvious what you're not happy with. That's the point. You've got to work it out. That takes time. You can talk to people, or you can, I don't know, I talk to people. Wouldn't have known how to have done it any other way. But it's not the end. That's the biggest thing. It's not the end. In many ways, it's only just begun, because once you climb this mountain, it's a fantastic view on the other side, and you'll take that view and you'll take all the information you learned climbing it onto the rest of your journey, and that lasts forever. This is real tangible stuff. If the solution was quick, you wouldn't value it, right? You wouldn't value this. If the solution's, oh, you got tinnitus, take this pill and you'll be all right. You would be right out there doing all the other things, you know, that you were doing wrong in the first place. The reason why it's hard is because the lessons you learned from overcoming it are so massive, it will help you in so many other ways. Happy drumming, good vibes, and that's it.
Jamie, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. You've put this into such good language and put your message across really well. We'll see what the outcome is. All right, bud. Cheers, mate.
Nice.